Sarah, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so we all have that obnoxious vegan friend who's kind of complaining about animal rights all the time and guilting you while you're trying to eat your food and things like that. Over break, I had a friend who recently went vegan because of certain things that she found out about milk. And I was kind of looking into it, kind of giving her some doubt and not really believing her. But when I actually sort of researched into it, I realized that we don't actually need to drink milk. The role of milk in the American diet is just completely unnecessary. So first of all, we're actually the only species that drinks another species' milk. Most species, like especially actually only mammals, drink their mother's milk when they're born, which helps them. It contains a lot of enzymes and helps with growth and things like that. So obviously we do need our mother's milk when we're children. We have a special enzyme called lactase that helps us process the milk when we're that young. But as we grow older, most people lose that enzyme. And so when you lose that enzyme, that's when you become lactose intolerant. When I say most people lose that enzyme, I really mean so. 50 million Americans are actually lactose intolerant, which includes 90% of all Asian Americans, 75% of all African Americans, Mexican Americans, and Jewish Americans. It's also linked to diabetes and prostate cancer and heartburn, just because of all of the ways we can't process it. And it's actually the most common food allergen for kids who should still have that enzyme lactase, but still can't process it. So within the past 10 years, $4 billion have been put into the Got Milk campaign that we're also familiar with. Again, we shouldn't really be listening to it. A common myth is that we need calcium for bone growth, which is somewhat true, but to avoid osteoporosis, which is like the eventual disintegration of our bones, we actually need vitamin D and like a lot of exercise. So if you keep drinking a lot of milk, it's not bad for you, but it's not going to necessarily add too much to your bone growth. Throughout American history, milk has generally been featured as its own food group. The Standard American Diet Guidelines sometimes include it in the meat category or proteins, and sometimes it's its own category. But our American Diet Guidelines have also in the past included an entire category for just butter and margarine, as well as in 1979 when the National American Food Guide stressed the consumption of fats, sweets, and alcohol. So yeah, in the end, basically, we don't really need to drink milk, and so maybe your vegan friend is a little bit more right than you think she is. Yep.
All right, in case you didn't remember, I am going to be giving oral comments, and I leave the camera running so that the comments will be on the YouTube channel for you. Also, sometimes people are a little shell-shocked immediately after the speech, so you can always go back and relive this wonderful experience. Look, I heard the claim in the introduction. I like the attention device. I thought it was funny. It was a good way to lead the audience into the subject. And I heard the claim, but you need to highlight the claim a little bit so that people know that that is the proposition. there's not any preview of what the secondary points are going to be. You start diving into information right away, and the secondary points are not labeled as you get to them, so information starts running together almost immediately. Now, I thought that you had some good statistical information at the beginning, but you don't give us a source citation on it, and you rush through it very quickly. And although 50 million Americans fit into the category of people who are lactose intolerant, and you mentioned a whole bunch of classifications of groups, you know, I would be hard-pressed to say that that's a majority of Americans, since we've got 320 million Americans. So I feel bad for all of those groups that have the lactose intolerance, but you're making a broader generalization about the whole population, and you want to be careful about those numbers. And I think there are other issues that you present that suggest that there might be other problems that people would have by consuming milk, and you don't really have any numbers on those, and you don't have any source citation on them. Now, again, that doesn't mean that I doubt that some people might have indigestion issues or heartburn issues related to that, but you ought to be providing us with some support for that. That was the biggest weakness, I think, in the body of the speech, is that you've got information that you're presenting, but it's not always cited, and sometimes you present information and I'm wondering, well, why is it here? So they spent $4 billion on Got Milk. How does that prove that we don't need to have milk? I think there may be some information here that would be useful in background that suggests that we have been misled or propagandized to believe that we need milk more than we do, and then that might be something that would be useful in the background, but it's not really a supporting point for the argument that says that it's not essential or that we could get by without it. And I, you know, this historical data on the different categories of food groups, I thought that was interesting, but again, I'm not exactly sure what that means. I think the argument ought to be that the fact that milk fits into a food category as a food category by itself does not necessarily mean that the categories can't change, because they have changed in the past, and so if they've changed in the past, it would not be a problem to change it in these circumstances to reflect what people's real needs are on this. All I know is that if I was responding to this speech, I think 3 or 4 words would be sufficient to convince most people that they need milk products. Cheese, ice cream. There you go.